Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Joel Rosen. I am the Adrenal Fatigue Recovery Ninja, and I want to welcome you back to another edition of your Adrenal Fix. Today, I want to talk to you guys about adrenal fatigue, organic acid testing, ketogenic diets, and gut health. It's funny because some of you are friends with me on Facebook, and some of you are just members of this group. But I did my first Facebook Live to my friends of my Facebook, and I didn't do it to this group. And I started seeing names that were popping up like, wow, they're not a member of this group. Oh, that's my high school friend. And like, so it was kind of interesting because I don't really do my Facebook Lives on there. And I ended up doing them there. And now they know a little bit more about what I do. And hopefully I can help some of those people too. Anyways, what I was describing was the adrenal fatigue phenomena. And I was listening to a ketogenic summit the other day, and they were talking about adrenal fatigue and becoming ketogenic. And they were also correcting themselves, and they were talking about, well, it's not really adrenal fatigue, it's more of an HPA axis dysfunction. And that's correct too. It's more correct than adrenal fatigue, although adrenal fatigue really highlights the fact that the adrenals are impacted, and they're the ones that are the soldiers in the stress response at the glandular level. And ultimately, they're the ones that have, it's interesting because I can't see who's here or who's not here, which I'm not liking. The new Facebook changes their settings all the time, and I never can tell who's here and who's not here. So, but anyways, what I was saying is that I don't like the definition adrenal fatigue as a definition to have you understand the impact that stress is having on the body, and all the things in the body that are impacted by stress, and not just the adrenals. And then HPA axis really gets into how does the brain signal the adrenals, and how do the adrenals feed back to the brain to tell the brain that they don't need to be firing anymore. But that's a limited view also, just as adrenals are. And so what I would say is the best definition for this phenomena, which is an epidemic, is a breakdown of cellular respiration. Easy peasy. I mean, it's not a healthy flowing term in terms of just cell respiration problems or cellular hypoxia or pseudohypoxia or just decreased energy production at the cellular level. And one of the things that I like to talk about is the cell danger response, where when you have a supply and demand problem, fundamentally you're having a unequal ratio between your supply, your raw materials, your minerals, your cofactors, your substrates, the enzymes, the cell membranes, the actual receptor for those things to bind to. You have a lot of things that you take, the sodium, potassium pumps. You have a lot of energy dependent fundamental processes that are not happening. And really at the end of the day, one of the most fundamental things is converting food and energy into ATP. And that's our own way of making energy. And ATP is not happening when you're not breathing, when there's no oxygen to bounce on those sort of the end of a plug where you bring electricity and you have metal coils and you have bouncing electrons to where you generate energy. Kind of works the same way in our body, just at the cellular level, and we are not doing that properly. And your body decides, okay, what are we going to do here to compensate? And one of the things is your HPA axis shuts down. Another thing is your immune system is impacted. Another thing is that you have an unequal balance between oxidative stress and antioxidant production. Then you have a vicious cycle that gets worse and worse and worse. So that's really what my message is, and that's what I try to teach you guys. And I hope that makes sense. Hi, Christy. Hope you're well. I'm going to try to answer a couple of your questions a little later. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to talk about that. Number one is I think we need to come up with a better definition, although I'm sticking to the adrenal fatigue recovery ninja, and I'm sticking to the idea that I'd like to make adrenal fatigue warriors, just because the way I look at it is now it's a bonding definition in terms of now we can identify with, we get that the adrenals are really impacted, but we also get that it goes deeper than the adrenals, and we get that you don't accept it as a traditional doctor, that the adrenals actually become fatigued and exhausted and tired. We get that too, but you're not being open-minded to think outside the box and understand that you don't get what we get, in that it goes deeper than the actual adrenals, and it goes to the cellular component of the energy production and respiration. Just like cancer as a metabolic disease, we have mitochondrial issues. Our cells put a priority on the way that they make energy and utilize that ATP for functioning, and as a result we have this epidemic of brain fog, focus, concentration, joint pains, inability to focus, having, crashing in the middle of the day, not being able to tolerate stress, having an autonomic nervous system that's not able to deal with the basic stressors that we place on it, just not handling stress. And what better to talk about encapsulating that in terms of calling it adrenal fatigue? Yes, it keeps controversy, but we're making a new definition, I guess a good way of saying it is having a new paradigm for an old concept. And that's what progress is about. So anyways, what I wanted to do is I wanted to talk to you about a couple things. So I had someone ask a question, and I'm going to post this to YouTube, but I don't know if he's a member of this group, but he asked a really great question. He said he had obviously done an organic acid test, and what he said was, hey, besides gastrointestinal problems shutting down this dopamine beta hydrogenase enzyme, is there any other reason that you would have an inability to break down dopamine? And that's a big reason. I mean, I think you can't just say besides gut health and cross it off your list and say, okay, I have no more gut problems. So I would question that. Number one is, hey, did you fix the gut, and how did you go about doing that? Did you test and retest, and how do you feel? And you kind of get some metrics on that to know that you can cross that off the list. And it's easier said than done. And it has a lot to do with just basic, what's your nutrition like? Are you eating foods that are not contaminated? Are you eating foods that have good quality nutrients, micronutrients, macronutrients? Are you stabilizing your glucose? Are you doing all the basics to say that your gut health is good and you can cross it off the list, and you want to know all the other things that could be impacted? Don't be so shiny about the shiny object, or shiny. Don't be so encouraged about a shiny object that you may not have crossed off the list for the boring object that you have. I'm always about that. But it was a great question. And so one of the things that we would say is, in order to clear out dopamine, you do have to have good neurotransmitter receptors. So receptors are proteins. Receptors are on the membranes. So membranes have to have good integrity. That means we have to have good fatty acid utilization and absorption, good protein absorption. We can't have too many carbs, because that will create a lot of inflammatory mechanisms that make those receptors not good to bind to. And you have to have good micronutrients. You need to have all those things ready to go for you to say, hey, what else can I do? And that's a whole lesson onto itself. But either way, there's a great pathway planner. I don't know if you can see it here, but what the question was is that, what are the other things that you need to be working properly? And so MAO-B, it's an enzyme that we can, as males, we only inherit one gene from mom, so we cannot be plus on that. But if we're plus minus, it will slow down that energy utilization of that assisting highway that will help clear out dopamine, because one of the main highways is DBH, and that's impacted because of a gut health. But we have an off-ramp called MAO-B, and that MAO-B is very highly polymorphic, meaning we're born with the inability to repair that enzyme. And if you're a woman and you have a plus, that could be double bad, if that makes sense. So anyways, as far as we look at here, you need to have FAD. FAD is riboflavin, and riboflavin is activated by a healthy T4 and a healthy thyroid. So now I would say to you, okay, well, you need to have a healthy thyroid. You need to have your cells breathing properly, because the whole reason the thyroid's not healthy is because the cells aren't breathing properly. Your body goes into a cell danger response and tells the cells, hey, you got to stop breathing so much. You're utilizing a lot of our oxygen, or we're respirating. We're having issues here with making enough oxygen. We got to slow things down, or we got to utilize that to put out fires. We're getting a lot of our oxygen stolen away from here. You got to, maintain a pace that you can keep up with, and we need you to slow down the metabolism. And so thyroid will slow down metabolism, and then we'll be put on thyroid medications, and that will speed up metabolism. And now all of a sudden your body's going haywire, and thyroid medication is not making you feel good. You're feeling racy and you don't feel healthy, but yet your TSH may be in a better value. I mean, are we listening to the patients, or are we talking to the test and seeing that as a patient? Or are you doing a little bit of both? That's really important. So anyways, MAO-B needs FAD, and FAD is activated by your thyroid. The other thing we see a lot with B2 or FAD is gastrointestinal microbes utilize a lot of FAD, and as a result, hey Colleen, I hope you're doing well. And also and Melissa, I hope you're doing well. And I know the Rosbrig Dev, I know who that is, and I hope you're especially doing well. We need to talk. I'll send out an email to you as well. But either way, let's see if I can focus on what I was talking about. What I was talking about was MAO-B and FAD, and having your B2 being stolen away from your gastrointestinal tract. So that's a couple things you need to be focusing on there as well. COMT is another backup route, and that's very highly polymorphic. That's where you get a plus or a plus minus, and that can slow down that enzyme even further. And anytime you have an enzyme that ends in MT, you're going to have problems with upstream things like methylation, MTHFR, the B12, SAMe. That's going to be all problematic for you as well. So yes, there's a lot of things that you need to worry about besides just the gastrointestinal tract. And then also COMT needs SAMe as a cofactor, and we really, really need to work hard on producing your own SAMe and preserving it. That means reducing oxidative stress, stabilizing your glucose, getting good healthy fats, reducing your carbs, making sure you're getting enough protein but not too much protein, make sure that you're able to break down your protein. Lots of things right there that you should be doing. Then there's what's really cool about it is it has these things that will decrease the activity. So things like, it's not really cool that happens in our body, but it's really cool that we know about environmental triggers, that if you didn't have a plus or a plus minus and you said, hey, I don't have a problem, my MAO or my COMT, it's working fine, I'm perfect, what else do you got for me? It doesn't work that way, because these things will slow down that perfectly working fine enzyme. So things like smoking and caffeine, and foods that are high in tyrosine. So let's talk about that. Another thing that will impact that is catecholamines. If you're bringing more fluid into these enzymes that need to be processed and broken down, and these enzymes that are processing them and breaking them down aren't working as effectively because of what we just mentioned, then bringing more fuel into the tub to have to drain is going to be harder, and it's going to overflow. So that's why getting off of the stimulants and caffeines and tyrosine foods and proteins even. So thanks for the thumbs up. I'm hoping you guys are liking this. Then we look at also stress. Stress releases catecholamines, right? Adrenals, and that's why I like to call it adrenal fatigue again, because the adrenals are always involved. Other things, reactive oxidative species, another way of saying inflammation. Reactive nitrogen species, another way of saying free radical buildup. We're losing out on oxygen and free radicals are building up. Fungicides will slow things down. And then there's a couple of things that are in acronyms, which I don't have my legend, even though I am a super nerd. I don't have the legend to be able to see exactly what they are. But then we're talking about other enzymes like MAOA, We're also talking about PNMT. And so there's a lot of enzymes that have a lot of substrates and cofactors and vitamins and minerals and inhibitors and things that slow it down that you can really help. And that's really cool. That's, I wanted to talk about that. I don't know if I'll post this on my YouTube channel because people will think I'm a bit crazy when they're like, who's this guy? At least you guys know that I'm crazy and you know me. But the people in the YouTube, they just think that he's crazy. So as far as that, I wanted to talk about that. I want to talk about ketogenic diet. I think it's an awesome thing to do. It's easier said than done. You just don't say, okay, I'm becoming keto and that's it, that's all. Or what do you think about these keto little packets? What do you think about those? And I think that they can be helpful, but I think that there's a lot of work that goes into this. You got to get healthy to be able to do this. It's not the other way around where you got to do this to get healthy. Hopefully that makes sense. And you got to be healthy to be healthy. And you got to start to be healthy to start to be healthier. Hopefully that made sense too. You got to start somewhere. And you can't just go and say, okay, I'm becoming ketogenic. I'm taking these ketogenic exogenous ketones, but I didn't change around my carbs, or I did drop my carbs, I just didn't drop them high enough, or I still think I can drink a lot of aspartame and diet sodas and have chemical-based foods and not get a lot of nutrients in my leafy green vegetables, because that's what's happening. I mean, that's really what's happening. And then not to mention you're eating way too much protein, and that protein exceeds your carb threshold. And then we're not moving every day, and we have an office job and we're tired and we're exhausted, but yet we don't take, 1,000 steps a day. And if you do, then take 1,001. And then if you do, take 1,015 and then take a break because okay, I'm tired. You got to be a good listener of your body, and you got to be able to sort of live under that bell-shaped curve of not doing too little, not doing too much, doing just right, and understanding how to keep it there. I wanted to talk to you about that. That's the ketogenic diet. And then gut health. Gut health, we kind of talked about, where he wanted to know, besides, on an organic acid test, if you definitely have a Clostridia problem, that will slow down that DBH enzyme, and you'll have an unequal ratio of your dopamine metabolite to your adrenaline metabolite, which either way, high or low, equal, low or high, could still result in the same symptoms. And that could be anxiety, or could they result in opposite symptoms? So there's a lot of moving parts. And I wanted to explain that to you guys. Hopefully that made a lot of sense. So what I'd love to do is answer your questions. If there is any questions, Christy, if you have a question, or Melissa, you have a question, or Teresa, you have a question, Colleen, Hope, and Vince, hope you're doing well as well. If you guys have any questions, I would love to answer them. What's really interesting about these Facebook Lives are there's a bit of a delay. And so when you guys give me a thumbs up or a like or a comment or a question, it usually comes after, and then I'll start talking about something and I won't remember what I was saying. And then I'll answer the question. And it's like, you'll have a comment in there and it's not even like in context anymore. I'm like, I don't know what that was. So anyways, what other things would I want to talk to you about? One of the things that's really important, let's do this. I haven't looked at my blood sugars for a while. I'm trying to become a little bit more metabolically flexible myself, and trying to be able to control my glucose. That has been a lifelong thing, believe it or not. No matter how much I exercise, I'm always in the higher levels of the 90s, and ultimately, unless I'm doing a lot of fasting, I'm getting into the 80s. And so there is a lot of wear and tear on these adrenal glands and all the things that I talked about in terms of cell danger. So I'll just take my glucose. People don't like to look at the blood, but let's take a look and see where we're at here. What I really like about the ketone meter is that it's quick and it's fast. So I'm at 111. So if you can see that, so 111. So it's a little bit high, but I'll give you the context. I had my first meal today at I had it at 10:30, 11 o'clock ish, and then I had another little snack at 1:30, and then I was getting a little bit hungry, and I had some almonds, and I had a couple of figs actually, which was really yummy, and it wasn't too much. So my glucose I ate probably a half hour ago, 45 minutes. So I would expect it to be a little bit elevated. Let's do this though. Let's see if I can take my ketone readings and see where they are. My guess is that they're not going to be in a high range, just because I haven't been eating a lot of healthy fats today, which you got to make sure. This is the whole trick to be coming into and out of ketosis. That's what happens is you come into and you go out of ketosis. And the problem is a lot of people never go back into, or they never are into ketosis. So now what we'll do is we'll look at my ketones, and we're actually at, where are we here? 1.1. So that tells you that I am fat adapted. I have enough of a time block between my meals, and I have not a whole lot of carbs, and I have also plenty of fats. I do use exogenous ketones for my coffees. I'm going to be doing a lot more decaf. I had someone send me some decaf coffee, and it tastes really good. My big knock on decaf coffee was the fact that it was chemically based. And so I'm going to be talking to this guy and try to understand, the impact of decaf coffee. You remember, at the end of the day, it creates a lot of catecholamines and causes you to have to process that and expose your weaknesses and put you into more of a stress state. But it's a culture, right? Like, we like to hold our coffee cups. We like to have that warmth there. We like to smell that coffee. And it's just sort of, there's a lot of culture to that. So I'm all for that, but in moderation, and also not drinking that with artificial sweeteners, making sure that there's no aspartames, or there's natural flavors, or there is, non-dairy creamers, or not organic dairies, or if you have a lot of dairy sensitivities, or you're even just putting regular sugar in there. There's a lot of ways that it can go wrong. I really like the purity of getting an MCT oil in there. I'm not crazy about the MCT powders because it still feels artificial to me. It clumps up a little bit, although it gives you more of a white, creamy taste and feel to it, and does really boost my ketone levels. Then I like more of just the dark black coffee. But why not do it if you can get less caffeine? And now you're even more moderate, which be minimized. So anyways, I'm rambling on here. Let me see if I can answer some of your questions. Hope. So I'm averaging maybe 160 carbs a day. I struggle with severe hunger all the time. What's the best way to cut down? When I try to cut down, I get very dizzy and I'm so sick, like thirsty and hungry. Yeah, that's very common. Thank you for the question, Hope. So the first thing that I think about is probably there is a candida yeast overgrowth going on there. So that's going to be a troublesome thing from a neurotransmitter point of view, which we've talked about in terms of the need for energy. And I don't want you to confuse the need for energy with the need for dopamine. There's a difference. That's a really key saying. I think I'm going to write that down. There's a difference between a need for fuel and a need for dopamine. Or another way of saying that is there's a difference between a physiological hunger and a psychological craving. Now, not to say, hey, like you're having a psychological moment, like just get over it. Not saying that. What I'm saying is that your blood sugar more than likely is still high. Like, see how my blood sugar was 111? If I got hungry all of a sudden, it's not, and my ketones were at 1.1, that's going to fall still. I'm not hungry right now. And you know what? It's 7:15. I may not even have another meal tonight because I did have enough calories. And if I go home too late and I wait past my window, I might actually cause my glucose to be too high before I go to bed. It may interrupt my sleep. And then I wake up and my fasting glucose is high in the morning. And then I can't go below 160 a day because I really struggle. And that's That's a good example, Hope. I hope that makes sense. So some of the tricks are having some amino acids. Another trick is not being dehydrated. I'm definitely dehydrated today. I don't have my water bottle. I have my water cup here, and I can tell you I haven't drank a lot of water today. I feel dehydrated. That will make me hungry. That's a big one. And also, if I have mineral breakdown, or I have I'm electrolyte deficient. My sodium is low, maybe my potassium's low. I'm hungry. I want something make me feel good. Maybe just nutrients in terms of water. Again, not saying that's how you'd have to do it, but these are some of the clues that aren't the pretty clues that you can focus in on. Also, what are the carbs that you're getting? How much fat are you getting? My suggestion would be, say, drop the carbs by 20 grams, or say 25 grams. So that's 100 calories, and get a 9 gram of fat, and see if you can have a handful of nuts and see if that helps. Something like that, that's going to stabilize your give you a little bit more shelf life of the blood sugar not dropping too low. And again, I'm questioning how low is it actually dropping, because we don't know. I don't know if it's actually physiologically low or your dopamine's low. And you need to do the exercise of calibrating what is it saying with what your brain's saying, and start to see that and educate that. That's what I'm all about teaching. Vince, I have a primary adrenal insufficiency. Okay, so Addison's disease, gotcha. Is keto eating safe to start if someone doesn't produce any cortisol naturally? Currently at 40 milligrams of hydrocortisone daily. Concerned that keto eating will make me feel even weaker. It's a great question, Vince. It's one that I'd have to think about. So here's how I'd go about thinking about it. So I'd want to know your age, and I want to know like how long ago you were diagnosed with the primary adrenal insufficiency. At the end of the day, that's important, because I'd want to know how long have you been doing this for, or how long did it go undiagnosed for, so that we can get an idea on how much damage to the tissue there possibly could be based on the autoimmune attack. But I'd also want to say, without even knowing that, your immune system is primary, and your gut health is primary, and your stabilizing of glucose is primary, and reducing all your stressors and helping your cells breathe properly are all primary. So are you asking, when I get all of that stuff primarily focused in on and dialed in on, should I eat in a ketogenic way, so that I'm not asking the ketogenic methods to do all the heavy lifting of some of the things that I may not have already done prior to that? But is it a good idea to use it as a tool to help me continue to improve? And ultimately, I don't know what your main chief complaint is there. My guess is just exhaustion, fatigue, pain, maybe even not sleeping well, not handling stressors well, gaining weight, focus, concentration. Those are the things I'd need to know also, and how can we measure and improve upon those and make sure that those are getting better. But now to your question, is it safe? It's definitely safe if you're doing it properly. We do have a couple of concerns, right? Like you have no cortisol, but what would raise cortisol levels if you didn't control your carbs and you didn't control your proteins and you added a whole bunch of fat? That wouldn't be a ketogenic diet, but that wouldn't be safe. So if you're doing it in a pure way, and you have sort of a doctor's support, and they're understanding sort of the pitfalls that can make it unsafe, then yes, it could be unsafe, because you're doing something that is different than what I think you should be doing, and that's just more of a interpretation of how to do it. So some people just don't do it properly, or don't understand, don't have the knowledge, but that would be a big consideration. Obviously, knowing other things like what's the gut health, what's driving your immune system, what caused the immune attack on the adrenals in the first place, and what other tissues are being attacked as well. I'd want to know that. And then, yeah, those are the things I'd want to know. Hopefully that was a good answer. Are there any other questions? If there's not, I don't want to keep your time going. We're right at about a half hour. I think that's a good time frame to go. Oh, I see a couple other things here. Sorry. I'm 35 years old, diagnosed at 15 years old. Wow. So lots of stuff. You've had it for 20 years. and maybe even a little bit longer, I'd want to look at your genetics. I'd want to look at, your HLA, probably get you off all grains. Probably already doing that already. If you're not, I'd do that too. And I'm exhausted and not handling stress well, for sure. But if you can get your body repairing its inflammatory cascade, you'll have better receptors, and those receptors will work better for where your hydrocortisone will bind to a lot better. So can you have fruit on keto? I'm insulin resistant, so can I still have any fruit? If so, which fruits? Thanks, Joel. You're a champ. You're a champ. Yes, I would say still low glycemic fruits can be helpful and should be used. I like anything that's a stone fruit is a peach is great. I just got back into peaches and they're so good. Good fiber, plums, even apples, although you got to be careful with apples with, arsenic. It sucks with pesticides. I mean, it takes if anything, I would say, could you still have fruits? Is it not so much the insulin resistance as it is the chemical exposures? That's a sad fact. It really is. I mean, unless you want to be completely neurotic and live in a bubble and not touch anyone, you have to give a certain amount up for, for hope that it really is organic and there really is no chemicals on here. But I don't know about that. We need to invent a scrubber thing that, just disinfects and gets rid of all the chemicals and keeps all the yummy goodness in there. But that would be the bigger problem, I would think. I like blueberries. If you mix it a little bit with a fiber or a fat, that can also slow down the transit time. And obviously movement is really key. Not bicycling up mountains or anything like that, but just getting out, getting movement going. Those are real big ones as well. So I'm glad I didn't see your question originally. Every time I test my blood sugar, it's usually 9 to 100. So it's not dropping low that I'm aware of. But in the middle of the night, I wake up with surges to eat like I have low blood sugar, and I don't. Those are good tips. I would still say that, 90 to 100, it makes you feel hypoglycemic. And that is becoming more of an addiction. I hate to say that. Not that you're a sugar addict, but sugar is insidious, and it really programs the body to want more and more of it, and neurochemicals are released, and in order to satisfy the neurochemicals being released, it almost guides our behavior, and that's again a small little plug. I got my brain tap here for you. Those of you that ordered it, you should be really excited. It is awesome. It is so awesome. I just realized that I have a Bluetooth connection, and although I don't like the EMFs, I can stand it for 20 minutes or so. And what it does is, I had a patient come in, David, hope you're okay with me telling this, but he wanted to know about, so what is it doing? Like, it's good, but what is it doing? And so the binaural beats, there's, equal frequencies, unequal frequencies in each ear. So 890 and 900, or 880 and 900. The brain doesn't hear 880 and 900. It hears 890. So it's already getting two different frequencies to be in the same frequency. And that gets you, first of all, infinitely more relaxed, gets you out of sympathetic overdrive, number one. So you're more receptive, and you're in more of a different sympathetic intensity level. It's like you turned off the on button is really what you did. And then the visual stimulation through the eyes and the ears, auricular and the visual stimulation, what that does is that helps slow down your frequencies of your high speed wavelengths of high beta, and gets you into alpha. And that's where we're more focused and concentrated, and we're sort of in the zone. And you need the brain to be coherent and slow down a notch for that to even happen. And then it takes you through delta waves. Delta is when you're deep REM sleep, where you're actually getting your lymphatic system of the brain working in that delta REM sleep. And you go through all three of those while there are different messages being played in terms of focusing your brain on and picturing this and doing that and doing visual exercises at the same time. And then the other question I got, well, is that permanent? And I was like, well, it's not permanent, but you think of the example of the vet that comes back from the war and they have PTSD and they have very destructive behaviors, and a lot of them will, very sadly, commit suicide. It's because the plasticity changes in their brain that require certain releasing of chemicals in certain ways at certain times, like addictions to sugars and stuff like that, causes ruinous behaviors. And it's really hard to untrain that plastic brain into more of a plastic brain. And so this device would really help that. And my heart breaks for a lot of vets that should really have had this technology and really help them. But, they also need the nutrition. They need the healthy leafy greens and the B vitamins and the B12 and the lack of foods that are commercially, processed and sprayed and all of that other stuff too. So there's a lot of work to be done. Hopefully that was really helpful. If you guys did find that helpful, then please give me some thumbs up. Makes me feel good that I have people listening and they enjoy the content. Otherwise, I just enjoy talking anyways. Leslie, I hope you're doing really well. I think about how your health has been, and I hope you're getting better. Vitamin B6 drops my blood sugar. Any thoughts on P5P? On the relationship between that and blood sugar. So it's a good question. The B6 has a function in so many things. It has a good function in reducing homocysteine to become glutathione. And if you're B6 deficient, that cannot happen. And glutathione is very important for oxidative stress. So that's a big relationship. B6 is also very important for neurotransmitters. If you're producing a lot of adrenaline and you don't have B6 nutrients to help, rid those side ramps to clear out the dopamine and the noradrenaline, then that can create a lot of overstimulation and oxidative stress and cause blood sugar spikes too. So boom, that would be my answer. That's my final answer. I'm sticking to it. But yeah, I think you got to look at it like that, Leslie, where you got to kind of see where these things are related. And that's where the pathway planner is so helpful for those that have never had your genetics looked at. Have them looked at and understand these things so that when you want to know, and I'm sure you're really smart, Leslie, but when you want to know, okay, like B6 drops for my blood sugar, how would that be related? Then that's how I look at it. I look at it where, well, here's where all the things that B6 come in. Also, why would B6 be deficient? There could be dietary intake, gastrointestinal flora. It could be depleted and overutilized. Lots of stuff, things like that we got to think along the way. I think that's all I'm going to do for you guys today. If you like that, I didn't see any of those likes come through, so I guess none of you guys liked that material. But anyways, and then Danique, I'm glad that you joined us. Came in late, we'll watch later. Well, you're in for a real treat because it was really good, I gotta say, if I don't mind saying so myself. No, we rambled on in a lot of different areas, and I hope you do find it helpful. If you have a question, then that'd be great too. And good talking to you the other day. I did reach out and talk to someone, but we really haven't touched base since then. But that's all good. I hope that they're finding their way. And ultimately, if you guys are looking for help too, we still are working real hard on customizing programs, looking at your genetics, looking at your DNA, looking at your environment, looking at everything we talked about, and really giving you clarity on that. So I'll leave a link to sign up for a 45-minute consult so that we can discuss that. But again, if you've had one already and you want another one, I'm fine with that, provided that we're looking for solutions for you to start to implement and to do things about it, meaning have me help you do things. I can also try to troubleshoot with you as well, but being serious about like, okay, I got to get better here, and being on the sidelines in my life sucks, and I got to be coachable. I got to be determined and decisive, and I got to be resourceful. So I'll leave the link in there, and I look forward to helping you guys in your adrenal fatigue nightmare. Have a wonderful evening.